My name is Wilder Sornell, and I've always believed that the best security systems are the ones nobody notices. That philosophy served me well for 15 years designing surveillance tech for Altair City's elite. What I never expected was that my own expertise would reveal the most devastating betrayal of my life. It started on a Tuesday night in November. I was hunched over my home security hub, debugging a glitch in the motion sensors, when my doorbell chimed. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. Through the intercom's grainy feed, I saw a woman I recognized but had never actually spoken to, Ilara Trenix, wife of Jace Arnell, our neighbor from the luxury complex across the street. She stood there in a red coat, perfectly composed despite the late hour. When I opened the door, her first words made my world tilt sideways. "Your wife is in bed with my husband right now," she said, her voice steady as granite. "And there are cameras." I should have been shocked, should have demanded explanations, gotten angry, thrown something. Instead, I found myself smiling, a reaction that surprised even me. "Well," I said, stepping aside to let her in, "let's not interrupt them. Come in. We can decide what to do with the footage." Ilara's heels clicked against my hardwood floors as she moved into my living room. Everything about her screamed money. The designer coat, the perfect posture, the way she commanded space just by existing. She was everything my wife Mira aspired to be. "You're taking this remarkably well," she observed, settling onto my couch like she owned it. "Lady, I've suspected something was off for months. Mira's been going to yoga classes that apparently run until midnight, and your husband Jace has been making house calls when I'm supposedly at work." I gestured toward my wall of monitors. "Occupational hazard of being married to a security expert. I notice patterns." Ilara reached into her purse and produced a tablet. "Then you'll appreciate the quality of these recordings." The footage was crystal clear. My wife Mira, still in her lawyer's blazer, tangled with Jace on my own couch, the same couch where Ilara now sat. The audio was even worse than the visuals. Their whispered conversation between moments of passion cut deeper than any physical betrayal. "God, I can't wait until this divorce is finalized," Mira's voice came through the speakers. "Wilder's so pathetically predictable. Still thinks I'm working late at the firm." Jace's laugh was cruel. "Poor bastard probably thinks you're actually attracted to his boring security gadget hobby. When's the last time he made decent money?" "He's useful for now," Mira replied. "His name's on the house, and I need time to move some assets around before I leave him with nothing." I watched my wife of 12 years discuss my destruction like a business transaction. Ilara studied my face, waiting for a reaction. "Well," I said, closing the tablet, "that's certainly illuminating. Question is, what do you want to do about it?" "I want them to pay," Ilara said simply. "Both of them. Jace thinks he's untouchable because of his family money. Mira thinks she's cleverer than everyone else because she's a lawyer. They deserve each other, and they deserve consequences." I leaned back in my chair, mind already working through possibilities. "You know, I've been underestimated my whole life. Mira married me because I was stable and reliable, code words for boring and manageable. But here's what she never understood about security systems. The best ones don't just protect, they gather intelligence." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give them exactly what they want, a front row seat to their own destruction." I stood up, walking to my computer setup. "But first, let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes." Ilara moved closer as I pulled up various feeds from my home security network. The system I'd installed was more sophisticated than Mira realized. Motion-activated cameras in every room, audio pickups, even GPS tracking on our shared vehicles. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, scrolling through archived footage. 6 months that I know of," Ilara replied. "Possibly longer." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The timestamps confirmed her estimate. Meeting after meeting, always when I was supposedly at work or traveling for installations. They'd been careful, but not careful enough for someone who understood surveillance technology. "Your husband's car," I said, pulling up exterior footage. "Silver BMW, license plate ending in 847? "That's right. He's been here 17 times in the past 2 months, always parks 2 blocks away and walks." I turned to face her. "Question is, how did you get access to footage from inside my house?" For the first time since arriving, Alara looked uncomfortable. "That's complicated." "Uncomplicated." She sighed. "I may have had some additional surveillance equipment installed when you had that security upgrade done last month. The technician who came to your house works for a private investigation firm I hired." I stared at her. "You bugged my house. I needed evidence for my divorce. I didn't expect to find your wife involved." The audacity was impressive, even if it violated about 12 different laws. "So you've been watching my home for weeks, gathering intelligence on your cheating husband, and you just happened to discover my cheating wife in the process?" "Essentially, yes." I walked to my window, looking out at the luxury complex where Alara and Jace lived. Their penthouse glowed with warm light, probably hosting one of their famous dinner parties. The contrast with my modest smart home couldn't have been starker. "Tell me about Jace," I said. "What makes him tick?" "Ego," Alara replied immediately. "Everything he does is about image. The car, the clothes, the penthouse, even marrying me. It's all about how things look to other people. He can't stand being embarrassed or appearing weak. And Mira's the same way. She left her small-town background behind and reinvented herself as this sophisticated city lawyer. Her reputation is everything to her." "So we attack what they value most," Alara said. "Exactly. But we need to be smart about it. Mira's a lawyer. She knows how to protect herself legally. And Jace has family money, which means he has connections." My phone buzzed with a text from Mira. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I showed the message to Alara. "Want to see where they're really going tonight?" We used the GPS tracker I'd installed in Mira's car to follow their movements across the city. They ended up at the Meridian Club, an upscale bar in the financial district where Mira's law firm held client events. "Public place," I observed. "They're getting bold." "Or stupid," Alara replied. "Let's find out which." I grabbed my jacket and car keys. "Feel like taking a drive?" The Meridian Club's parking lot gave us a perfect view of the entrance. Jace's BMW was parked in the VIP section, because of course it was. Through my telephoto lens, I watched them at a corner table, holding hands like teenagers. "They look happy," Alara said, her voice flat. "They won't be for much longer." I'd brought more than just a camera. My toolkit included some specialized equipment from my security installation jobs, including a small device that could temporarily disable a car's braking system. Nothing dangerous, just enough to cause an embarrassing mechanical failure. "What are you doing?" Alara asked as I approached Jace's BMW. "Giving him a preview of what happens when you mess with someone else's property?" The device attached to his brake line with magnetic clamps. When activated, it would cause the brakes to engage randomly for about 30 seconds, enough to make the car lurch and stall, but not enough to cause an accident. We retreated to my car and waited. 20 minutes later, Mira and Jace emerged from the club, laughing at some shared joke. They climbed into the BMW, and Jace started the engine. The car made it exactly 50 feet before lurching to a sudden stop. Jace tried to restart it, but the brakes engaged again, causing the vehicle to jerk forward into a concrete parking barrier. No damage to him, but his pristine bumper now sported a significant dent. "Oops," I said, watching Jace get out to inspect the damage. His face was red with frustration and embarrassment. Other club patrons had gathered to watch the spectacle. "That was just a warning shot," I told Alara. "Tomorrow we start playing for keeps." As we drove away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: control. For too long, I'd been the predictable husband, the reliable provider, the man everyone took for granted. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd underestimated what happens when a security expert decides to go on the offensive. "There's something else," Ilara said as we pulled into my driveway. "Something I haven't told you about why I really wanted to expose them." "I'm listening." "This isn't the first time Jace has cheated, and the last time, Mira was the lawyer who helped him cover it up. She's been enabling his affairs for years, taking payment under the table to make problems disappear." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Not only was Mira betraying me personally, she'd been corrupting her professional ethics for money. The woman I'd married, the one I'd supported through law school, had been selling her integrity to the highest bidder. "How do you know this?" "Bank records. The private investigator I hired is very thorough." "So this is personal for you too?" "Very personal. Jace destroyed my first marriage by seducing my sister. Mira made sure there were no legal consequences. They think they're untouchable." I looked at my house, at the warm lights in the windows, at the life I'd built with someone who saw me as nothing more than a convenient placeholder. Tomorrow, Mira would come home with another excuse about working late. She'd kiss my cheek and ask about my day, all while planning my financial ruin. "They want a villain," I said, turning to Ilara. "Let's give them one." The next morning, I woke up to find Mira already gone. A note on the kitchen counter explained she had an early client meeting. The coffee was still warm, which meant she'd left recently, probably to avoid any awkward conversations about why she'd come home so late. I sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee and planning my next move, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my old friend Orion Vanton. "Wilder, you magnificent bastard," Orion's voice boomed through the speaker. "I heard through the grapevine that you might need some digital assistance with a delicate matter." Orion ran a digital forensics company that specialized in corporate investigations. We'd known each other since college, and he was one of the few people who understood both my technical skills and my capacity for creative problem-solving. "Word travels fast," I said. "Ilara Trenix called me this morning. Apparently you two have formed an alliance against some mutual adversaries." "Something like that. What did she tell you?" "Enough to know that your wife and her husband are about to learn a valuable lesson about consequences." "I'm in. I haven't even told you what I need yet." "Doesn't matter. Mira always treated you like garbage at social events, and Jace Arnell is everything wrong with entitled rich boys. Besides, I owe you for that time you helped me catch my business partner embezzling funds." I explained the situation in detail, including the evidence Ilara had gathered and my plans for systematic revenge. Orion listened without interruption, occasionally making appreciative sounds at particularly devious details. "So you want to destroy their reputations, their careers, and their financial security without breaking any major laws," he summarized. "That's ambitious, even for you. They think I'm just a boring security guy who'll roll over and accept whatever scraps they leave me. Time to show them how wrong they are. What do you need from me?" "Everything you can find on their financial records, communications, and professional activities. If they're hiding assets or engaging in unethical behavior, I want documentation. Give me 48 hours. After ending the call, I drove to Mira's law firm. The building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in Altair City's financial district, designed to intimidate and impress. I'd been there dozens of times for office parties and client events, always as Mira's unremarkable husband. Today was different. Today I was gathering intelligence. The security guard at the front desk recognized me. "Morning, Mr. Sornell. Here to see your wife?" "Actually, I'm here for the Charity Auction Planning Committee meeting. Mira asked me to drop off some donation forms." It was a complete lie, but delivered with enough confidence that the guard waved me through. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, where Mira's firm occupied half the building. The reception area buzzed with activity. Junior associates rushed between offices carrying files, while senior partners conducted hushed conversations in conference rooms. I spotted Mira through her office window, deep in conversation with a man I didn't recognize. "Can I help you?" The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, looked up from her computer. "I'm here to see Ms. Halverson about the charity auction." Margaret Halverson was the firm's managing partner and Mira's boss. "She's in a meeting, but I can take a message." "Actually, I'll wait. It's about a significant donation opportunity." Ashley gestured toward a seating area near the conference rooms. From there, I could observe the office dynamics and listen to conversations. What I heard was enlightening. Two junior associates were discussing a case involving financial disclosure violations. A senior partner was arguing with someone on the phone about client confidentiality issues. And from the conference room nearest to me, I caught fragments of a conversation about asset protection strategies that sounded suspiciously like what Mira and Jace had been discussing on the surveillance footage. After 20 minutes, I approached Ashley again. "You know what? I just remembered I have another appointment. Could you give Ms. Halverson my card and tell her I'll call to reschedule?" I handed her a business card for my security company. "Tell her it's about potential vulnerabilities in the firm's digital infrastructure. I think she'll be very interested." On my way out, I palmed a client information brochure from the reception desk. It contained contact information for the firm's major clients, information that might prove useful later. That evening, Mira came home at her usual time, around 7:30. She kissed my cheek and asked about my day, playing the role of devoted wife with practiced ease. "How was work?" I asked, matching her casual tone. "Busy. We're preparing for a major corporate merger, and the paperwork is endless." She poured herself a glass of wine. "How about you? Any interesting installations today?" "Just routine maintenance calls. Nothing exciting." We ate dinner together, making small talk about neighborhood gossip and weekend plans. Mira was an excellent actress. If I hadn't seen the surveillance footage, I might have believed she was genuinely interested in our conversation. After dinner, she retreated to her home office to review case files. I knew she was actually texting with Jace, planning their next rendezvous. The thought should have made me angry, but instead, I felt a cold satisfaction. Every lie she told, every deception she practiced, was more ammunition for my eventual counterattack. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Ilara. "Tomorrow night, charity gala at the Grandview Hotel. They'll both be there." The annual Altair City Legal Foundation Gala was one of the social highlights of the year for lawyers and their spouses. Mira had been looking forward to it for weeks, mostly because it was an opportunity to network and show off her success. I texted back, "Perfect. Time to make an impression." The next day, I spent the morning shopping for a new suit. If I was going to play the role of underestimated husband, I needed to look the part, successful enough to belong, but not so polished that I'd draw attention. I also made a stop at Orion's workshop, a cluttered space filled with computer equipment and digital forensics tools. He'd been busy. "Your wife is dirty," he announced without preamble, handing me a thick folder. "Not just the affair? She's been skimming money from client accounts and hiding it in offshore accounts." "How much money?" "About $200,000 over the past 3 years. Small amounts from multiple clients, disguised as administrative fees and processing costs." The revelation was staggering. Mira wasn't just cheating on me. She was embezzling from her clients and her firm. "Can you prove it?" "Bank records, email communications, falsified billing statements. It's all here." Orion grinned. "But wait, there's more. Jace Arnell has been using his family's investment firm to launder money for some questionable clients. Nothing explicitly illegal, but definitely unethical, and probably grounds for regulatory action." "You've been busy." "I live for this stuff. There's one more thing. Mira and Jace have been planning to leave their respective spouses and start a new life together. They've already put a deposit down on a condo in Miami. I stared at the evidence spread across Orion's workbench. Financial records, email printouts, photographs of Mira and Jace at various locations around the city. It was enough to destroy both their careers and their reputations. "What's the plan for tonight?" Orion asked. "Phase 1 of their public humiliation. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to plant some seeds of doubt and get people talking." The Grandview Hotel's ballroom was packed with Altair City's legal elite. Mira looked stunning in a black evening gown, working the room with practiced charm. I watched her laugh at jokes from potential clients, exchange business cards with influential partners, and generally play the role of successful attorney. Jace was there too, of course, with Alara on his arm. They made a striking couple, him in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, her in an elegant red dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. To outside observers, they looked like the perfect power couple. I spent the first hour playing my usual role, the quiet, supportive husband who smiled politely and let his wife shine. But I was also observing, noting who was important, who had influence, and who might be receptive to certain information about professional misconduct. During the silent auction, I positioned myself near Margaret Halverson, Mira's boss. She was examining a vacation package to Tuscany when I approached. "Ms. Halverson, Wilder Sornell, I believe your assistant gave you my card yesterday." "Oh yes, the security consultant. You mentioned something about digital vulnerabilities." "That's right. I've been doing some research on corporate data protection, and I think your firm might be at risk for certain types of internal breaches." "What kind of breaches?" "The kind where employees use company resources for personal gain, email monitoring, financial transaction analysis, that sort of thing." I handed her another business card. "I'd be happy to do a preliminary assessment, no charge." Margaret looked intrigued. "That's very generous. Can you give me a specific example of what you might find?" "Well, hypothetically, if an employee were skimming money from client accounts, my systems would detect the pattern within days. Same thing for unauthorized use of company resources for personal business." "Interesting. I'll definitely be in touch." As Margaret walked away, I caught sight of Mira across the room. She was deep in conversation with Jace, their body language suggesting an intimacy that went far beyond professional collaboration. Several other lawyers had noticed too, judging by their whispered conversations and meaningful glances. The evening's program included speeches from various legal luminaries and awards for outstanding community service. During one particularly boring presentation about pro bono work, I excused myself to visit the restroom. Jace was there, checking his appearance in the mirror with typical vanity. We were alone. "Great party," I said, taking the urinal next to his. "Yeah, these things are always good for networking." He didn't look at me, treating me with the casual dismissal he'd perfected over months of cuckolding me. "Must be nice, having all these opportunities to work closely with talented lawyers like my wife. Mira's very good at what she does." "I'm sure she is. You two seem to have developed quite a close working relationship." For the first time, Jace looked directly at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing specific. Just an observation." I washed my hands slowly, maintaining eye contact in the mirror. "You know, I've always admired men who go after what they want, regardless of the consequences." "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, just making conversation." I dried my hands and headed for the door. "Enjoy the rest of the evening, Jace. I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting for both of us." I left him standing there, uncertainty flickering across his face for the first time since I'd known him. The rest of the evening proceeded without incident, but I'd accomplished my goal. Seeds of doubt had been planted with Margaret Halverson. Jace was beginning to suspect that I might know more than I was letting on, and several prominent members of the legal community had noticed the obvious chemistry between Mira and Jace. As we drove home, Mira was unusually quiet. "Everything okay?" I asked. Fine, just tired. It seemed like you and Jace were having some intense conversations tonight. We're working on a complex case together. There's a lot to discuss. I'm sure there is. She looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just glad to see you're passionate about your work. We drove the rest of the way in silence. When we got home, Mira went straight to her office and closed the door. I heard her on the phone, speaking in hushed tones that suggested she was updating Jace on our conversation. Let them worry. Let them wonder how much I knew and what I might do with that knowledge. The real fireworks were still to come. 3 days after the gala, Margaret Halverson called my office. Mr. Sornell, I've been thinking about our conversation regarding digital security vulnerabilities. I'd like to schedule that assessment you mentioned. Of course. When would be convenient? As soon as possible. I've noticed some irregularities in our financial systems that concern me. I scheduled the appointment for the following Monday, giving me the weekend to prepare. Orion had provided me with sophisticated monitoring software that could detect financial anomalies and unauthorized access patterns. More importantly, it would give me legitimate access to the firm's computer systems. On Saturday morning, I was installing new motion sensors in my home office when Mira announced she was going shopping with her sister. It was obviously another lie. Her sister lived 3 states away and hadn't visited in over a year. Take your time, I told her. I'll probably spend the day working on these security upgrades. After she left, I activated the GPS tracker in her car and watched her route on my computer. She drove straight to Jace and Alara's luxury complex, confirming my suspicions. While Mira was busy with her shopping trip, I had work to do. I drove to the local gym where Jace held a membership, an upscale fitness center that catered to Altair City's professional class. According to Alara, he worked out every Saturday afternoon, usually around 2 p.m. The gym's manager, a former Marine named Rick, recognized me from my security installation work. I'd upgraded their surveillance system the previous year. Wilder, good to see you, man. Here to check on the cameras? Actually, I'm thinking about joining. My wife keeps telling me I need to get in better shape. Well, you've come to the right place. Want a tour? Rick showed me around the facilities, including the boxing area where members could train with heavy bags and practice sparring. It was perfect for what I had in mind. Do you guys ever do charity boxing matches? I asked. All the time. We're actually organizing one next month for the Children's Hospital. Why, you interested in participating? Maybe. I used to box in college. Nothing serious, just amateur stuff. But I'd love to get back into it for a good cause. That's great. I can put you down as a potential participant. We're always looking for guys who know what they're doing. I filled out the membership paperwork and scheduled a training session for the following week. As I was leaving, Jace arrived for his workout, dressed in expensive athletic gear that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Small world, I said, approaching him near the entrance. Oh, hey Wilder, I didn't know you worked out here. Just joined. Rick was telling me about the charity boxing event next month. You should sign up. It's for a great cause. Jace looked uncomfortable. I'm not really a boxing guy, more into cardio and weight training. Come on, it's just for fun. Besides, I bet you could hold your own in the ring. I clapped him on the shoulder. Think about it. It would be great publicity for your investment firm. I left him standing there, clearly unsettled by the suggestion. The idea of publicly fighting the husband he was cuckolding was obviously not appealing to him. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth for November. I dressed in my most professional attire and drove to Mira's law firm, carrying a briefcase filled with legitimate security assessment tools and some less legitimate monitoring software. Margaret Halverson met me in the lobby and escorted me to a conference room where I could set up my equipment. I appreciate you doing this on short notice, she said. We've had some concerns about data security, and your timing couldn't be better. What kind of concerns? Irregularities in client billing, some unusual network access patterns, that sort of thing. Nothing definitive, but enough to make me want a professional assessment. I spent the morning running diagnostic tests on the firm's computer network. The legitimate tests revealed several minor vulnerabilities that I documented in a formal report. The illegitimate monitoring software, meanwhile, began collecting data on user access patterns, email communications, and financial transactions. During my lunch break, I encountered Mira in the hallway outside her office. "What are you doing here?" she asked, clearly surprised. "Security assessment for Ms. Halverson. She's concerned about potential data breaches." "I didn't know you were working with our firm." "It just came up. Apparently there have been some irregularities in the financial systems." I watched her face carefully. Nothing serious, I'm sure, but she wants to be thorough. Mira's composure slipped for just a moment, a flash of panic that she quickly suppressed. "Well, I'm sure everything will check out fine. I'm sure it will." That afternoon, I completed my assessment and presented Margaret with a preliminary report. The official findings were routine, standard recommendations for password security and network monitoring. But I'd also installed monitoring software that would track all system activity and send reports directly to my personal email. "This is very thorough," Margaret said, reviewing the documentation. "When can we implement these recommendations?" "I can start the upgrades next week. In the meantime, the monitoring software I've installed will alert us to any unusual activity." "Excellent. Send me a proposal for the full security upgrade." As I packed up my equipment, I felt a surge of satisfaction. I now had legitimate access to monitor the firm's computer systems, including Mira's email and financial transactions. Every move she made would be documented and recorded. That evening, Mira came home later than usual, claiming she'd been working on a difficult case. She seemed nervous, asking casual questions about my day and the security assessment. "Find anything interesting?" she asked over dinner. "Just the usual stuff. Outdated passwords, insufficient network monitoring, basic vulnerabilities that most firms have." "Nothing specific?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know." Margaret seemed concerned about something more serious than routine security issues. She mentioned some irregularities, but that's pretty common. Could be anything from employee error to system glitches. Mira nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was beginning to realize that her carefully constructed deceptions might be unraveling. Over the next few days, the monitoring software provided a steady stream of intelligence. Mira's email communications with Jace were particularly revealing. Not just personal messages about their affair, but detailed discussions of financial strategies and asset protection. One email exchange caught my attention. From mira.sornaluhalversonlaw.com to jarnellinvestments.com. Subject, Miami property. The closing is scheduled for next month. I've moved most of the funds to the Cayman account as discussed. W still doesn't suspect anything, but we need to be careful about timing. Once the divorce papers are filed, he'll have access to financial records. From jarnellinvestments.com to mira.sornaluhalversonlaw.com. Subject, RE, Miami property. Good. My lawyer says we can expedite the process if needed. E is getting suspicious about the increased travel expenses, so we might need to move faster than planned. Can you file the papers by the end of the month? They were planning to file for divorce within weeks after securing their assets and leaving me with nothing. The betrayal was complete, not just emotional and physical, but financial as well. I forwarded the emails to Orion, along with the financial records I'd gathered from the firm's systems. Within hours, he called with an update. "It's worse than we thought," he said. "They've been planning this for almost a year. The money Mira's been skimming isn't just going into offshore accounts. It's being invested through Jace's firm in a complex shell company structure." "How much money are we talking about?" "Close to $500,000 all told. Client funds, firm resources, even some money from your joint accounts that she's been moving gradually." The scope of their deception was staggering. They hadn't just betrayed their spouses, they'd been systematically stealing money to fund their new life together. What's our next move? I asked. Time to go public. I've prepared a comprehensive report documenting everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the money laundering, all of it. We just need to decide how to deploy it for maximum impact. I thought about the charity boxing match Rick had mentioned. It was scheduled for the following weekend and would draw a crowd of Altair City's professional elite. Jace still hadn't signed up, but I had an idea for encouraging his participation. Give me until Friday, I told Orion. I want to set the stage for their public humiliation. The next morning, I called Rick at the gym. Hey, it's Wilder Sornell. I wanted to follow up on that charity boxing event. Great timing. We're finalizing the participant list this week. You still interested? Absolutely. In fact, I have a potential opponent in mind, Jace Arnell from Arnell Investments. He's been talking about wanting to try boxing, and I think it would be great publicity for both our companies. Jace Arnell? I know that name. Big donor to the Children's Hospital, right? That's him. Very community-minded guy. I'm sure he'd love the opportunity to support the cause. I'll give him a call today. I spent the rest of the week preparing for what I knew would be a pivotal confrontation. Physical training at the gym, mental preparation for the psychological warfare to come, and careful coordination with Orion and Alara for the broader campaign against our cheating spouses. On Thursday evening, Jace called me directly. Wilder, I got a call from Rick at the gym. He said you suggested I participate in the charity boxing match. That's right. I thought it would be a great way for both of us to support the Children's Hospital. I appreciate the thought, but I'm not really comfortable with boxing. It seems kind of aggressive. Come on, Jace. It's just 3 rounds of light sparring for charity. Besides, I'm sure you can handle yourself. You're in great shape. There was a long pause. Are you challenging me? I'm inviting you to participate in a charitable event. If you're not interested, that's fine. I just thought it might be fun. Another pause. Fine, I'll do it. But just so we're clear, this is about supporting the hospital, not about whatever weird point you're trying to make. Of course. See you Saturday. I hung up the phone and smiled. Jace's ego had won out over his common sense, just as I'd hoped. In 3 days, I'd have the opportunity to publicly humiliate the man who'd been sleeping with my wife, all while maintaining the facade of charitable goodwill. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, Mira and Jace would learn what happened when they underestimated the quiet security guy who'd been watching their every move. Saturday arrived with crisp autumn air and clear skies, perfect weather for a public reckoning. The charity boxing event was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the gym, with proceeds benefiting the Children's Hospital. I'd spent the week training, not just physically, but mentally preparing for what would be the opening salvo in my campaign of revenge. Ilara had been busy too. Over coffee that morning, she updated me on her preparations. I've invited everyone who matters, she said, scrolling through her phone. Margaret Halverson from your wife's firm, several partners from competing law firms, some journalists who cover the legal community, and about 30 of Jace's investment clients. That's a lot of witnesses. That's the point. After today, there won't be any hiding what kind of man Jace really is. I arrived at the gym an hour early to warm up and review the plan with Rick. The main workout area had been converted into a makeshift arena, with folding chairs arranged around a regulation boxing ring. A banner reading, "Fight for the Children," hung above the ring, lending an air of legitimacy to what was about to become a very personal confrontation. You nervous? Rick asked as I wrapped my hands. Not about the boxing, I replied. The crowd began arriving around 1:30. I watched from the locker room as Altair City's elite filed in, dressed in casual weekend attire, but maintaining their professional networking instincts. Mira arrived with several colleagues from her law firm, looking elegant in designer jeans and a silk blouse. She seemed surprised by the size and composition of the crowd. Jace arrived fashionably late, accompanied by Alara and a small entourage of business associates. He wore expensive athletic gear that looked like it had never seen actual exercise, and his confident demeanor suggested he viewed this as just another social event where he could display his superiority. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rick announced through a portable microphone, "welcome to our charity boxing event benefiting Altair City Children's Hospital. Today we have several exciting matches featuring local business leaders and community members." The first few bouts were exactly what you'd expect from amateur charity boxing, enthusiastic but clumsy affairs that entertained the crowd without anyone getting seriously hurt. I used the time to observe Jace, noting his body language and apparent comfort level. He was nervous, I realized. Despite his outward confidence, he kept adjusting his gloves and shifting his weight from foot to foot. Good. Nervous opponents made mistakes. "Our next match," Rick announced, "features Wilder Sornell from Sornell Security Systems and Jace Arnell from Arnell Investments. Both gentlemen are first-time participants, so let's give them some encouragement." The crowd applauded politely as we entered the ring. I caught Mira's eye in the audience. She looked confused and slightly concerned, probably wondering why I hadn't mentioned this to her. Ilara, meanwhile, watched with obvious anticipation. "Gentlemen, this is a charity event," the referee reminded us. "Light contact only, no excessive aggression. 3 2-minute rounds. Touch gloves and come out boxing." Jace extended his gloves toward mine, and for a moment we were close enough to speak privately. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said quietly, "but this is a mistake." "The only mistake," I replied, "was thinking you could screw my wife without consequences." His face went pale. "What did you say?" "You heard me." The bell rang, and we separated to our corners. The first round was cautious on both sides, Jace trying to feel out my abilities, me taking his measure and playing to the crowd. He was in decent shape, but clearly had no real boxing experience. His punches were wild and telegraphed, easy to avoid or deflect. I landed a few light jabs to his midsection and one solid shot to his shoulder. Nothing that would cause injury, but enough to establish dominance. The crowd cheered appreciatively, assuming they were watching good-natured competition. Between rounds, I glanced at Mira. She was leaning forward in her seat, tension evident in her posture. She was beginning to suspect this wasn't just about charity. The second round was when I decided to send a message. Jace came out more aggressively, probably trying to end the fight quickly and escape the humiliation he could sense building. His overconfidence created the opening I needed. As he threw a wild right hook, I stepped inside his guard and landed a solid uppercut to his solar plexus. It wasn't hard enough to cause serious injury, but it doubled him over and left him gasping. The crowd gasped in sympathy. "You okay, Jace?" I asked loudly enough for the front rows to hear. "Maybe you should stick to activities you're better at, like screwing other men's wives." His face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. "Shut up," he hissed. "What's the matter? Don't like it when your dirty laundry gets aired in public?" He rushed at me then, abandoning any pretense of boxing technique. I easily sidestepped his charge and caught him with a light jab to the nose, not hard enough to break it, but sufficient to draw a trickle of red and further humiliate him. The referee stepped between us. "Gentlemen, keep it clean." But the damage was done. Several people in the crowd had heard my comments and were whispering among themselves. Jace's nose was bleeding, his expensive athletic wear was disheveled, and his carefully maintained image of sophisticated success was crumbling in real time. The third round was purely academic. Jace was demoralized and exhausted, throwing ineffective punches while I controlled the pace and distance. When the final bell rang, he practically fled to his corner. "Winner by unanimous decision," the referee announced. "Wilder Sornell." The crowd applauded, but the atmosphere had shifted. What started as light-hearted charity boxing had become something else entirely. A public display of dominance and humiliation that left everyone uncomfortable. As we left the ring, Jace pulled off his gloves and headed straight for the exit. Ilara intercepted him near the door, and I could see them having an intense conversation. Mira, meanwhile, approached me with a forced smile. "That was interesting," she said. "I didn't know you were planning to participate." Last-minute decision. Jace seemed eager to try boxing, so I thought I'd give him the opportunity. "Some of the things you said in there? Just trash talk. You know how competitive I can get." But she wasn't buying it, and neither was anyone else who'd heard my comments. As we mingled with the crowd afterward, I could feel the weight of suspicious glances and whispered conversations. Margaret Halverson approached me near the refreshment table. "That was quite a performance, Mr. Sornell. Just doing my part for charity." "I'm sure. By the way, I've reviewed your security assessment report. Very thorough work. I think we should schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss implementation." "Of course. I'll call your office Monday." "Actually, there's something specific I'd like to discuss. Some irregularities we've discovered since your initial assessment. Financial irregularities." I met her gaze steadily. "I'd be happy to help with any security concerns." "I was hoping you'd say that." As the gathering wrapped up, I found myself by the parking lot with Alara. Jace had slipped out right after the confrontation, likely to tend to his bruised ego and injured nose. Mira remained inside, mingling with her colleagues and working to shape the story of what they'd seen. "Phase 1 complete," Alara said quietly. "How did Jace react?" "About as well as you'd expect. He's furious and humiliated, but he can't do anything about it without admitting why you targeted him specifically." "And the witnesses?" "Plenty of people heard your comments about cheating wives. The gossip mill is already starting to turn." I looked back at the gym, where Mira was engaged in animated conversation with several other lawyers. She was trying to minimize the damage, but I could see the strain in her posture. "What's next?" Alara asked. "Now we let them sweat for a few days while they try to figure out how much we know. Then we hit them with the real evidence." That evening, Mira confronted me as soon as we got home. "What the hell was that about today?" she demanded, dropping her usual pretense of calm professionalism. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb with me, Wilder. The things you said to Jace in the ring, the way you targeted him specifically. What's going on?" I sat down on the couch, the same couch where I'd watched surveillance footage of her betrayal. "I think you know exactly what's going on." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Really? Then let me be more specific." I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of one of her emails to Jace. "Miami property closing. Cayman account. Ring any bells?" The color drained from her face. "Where did you get that?" "I'm a security expert, Mira. I notice things. I investigate things. And I've been investigating you and Jace for weeks." She sank into a chair, her composure finally cracking. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to document everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the plans to leave me with nothing while you start your new life in Miami." "Wilder, I can explain." "No need. I understand perfectly. You married a boring, reliable security guy because you thought he'd be easy to manage and dispose of when someone better came along. The problem is, you underestimated what happens when that boring security guy decides to fight back. What do you want? Justice, consequences, a reckoning for what you've done. If you expose this, it will destroy my career. That's the point." She stared at me for a long moment, probably calculating her options and realizing she had very few. "What are you going to do?" "You'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, I suggest you start thinking about how you're going to explain your actions to Margaret Halverson, the State Bar Association, and everyone else who trusted you." Mira left the room without another word, retreating to her office to make what I assumed were frantic phone calls to Jace and possibly her own lawyer. Let her plan and scheme and try to find a way out. It was too late for damage control. The next phase would be even more devastating than today's public humiliation. Soon, everyone in Altair City's legal and business community would know exactly what kind of people Mira and Jace really were. Monday morning brought rain and the kind of gray November sky that matched my mood perfectly. I sat in my home office, reviewing the comprehensive dossier Orion had compiled on Mira and Jace's activities. Bank records, email transcripts, surveillance footage, financial projections, everything needed to destroy their careers and reputations. My phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. Margaret Halverson's assistant informed me that Ms. Halverson wanted to meet immediately regarding urgent security matters. I dressed in my best suit and drove to the law firm, knowing this would likely be the beginning of the end for Mira's legal career. Margaret's corner office overlooked Altair City's financial district, a view that represented everything Mira had worked toward and was about to lose. The managing partner looked tired and stressed, with the demeanor of someone who'd spent the weekend dealing with a crisis. "Thank you for coming on short notice," she said, gesturing toward a chair across from her desk. "We have a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that could destroy this firm's reputation and land several people in prison." She opened a file folder. "Your security monitoring software detected some troubling patterns in our financial systems. Unauthorized transfers, falsified billing records, systematic theft of client funds." I maintained a neutral expression. "That's concerning. Do you have suspects?" "One of our senior associates appears to have been embezzling money for years. The total amount is approaching $500,000. Have you confronted the individual?" "Not yet. I wanted to gather all the evidence first and consult with you about the security implications." Margaret leaned forward. "The associate in question is your wife." I let the silence stretch for several seconds before responding. "I see." "You don't seem surprised. I've suspected Mira was involved in something unethical for months. Her spending habits, secretive behavior, unexplained income, it all pointed toward financial impropriety." "Why didn't you report your suspicions?" "Because I'm her husband, and I hoped I was wrong. Also because I needed concrete evidence before making accusations that could destroy someone's career." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Your professionalism is commendable, especially given the personal circumstances. Unfortunately, the evidence is overwhelming. Mira has been systematically stealing from clients and hiding the money in offshore accounts." "What's your next step?" "I'm terminating her employment immediately and referring the matter to law enforcement. I'm also contacting the State Bar Association to begin disciplinary proceedings." "That seems appropriate." "There's one more thing. The investigation revealed that Mira was working with an accomplice, Jace Arnell from Arnell Investments. He was helping her launder the stolen money through shell companies and foreign accounts." "I'm not surprised. They've been spending a lot of time together lately, supposedly working on cases. Actually, they've been planning to flee the country together once they'd accumulated enough stolen funds. We found plane tickets to Miami and documentation for a condo purchase in a non-extradition jurisdiction." I shook my head in apparent disbelief. "The betrayal is comprehensive." "I'm sorry you're going through this, Wilder. If there's anything the firm can do to help..." "Actually, there is something. I'd like permission to be present when you confront Mira. As her husband and as the security consultant who uncovered the evidence, I think I have a right to hear her explanation." Margaret considered this. "That's highly irregular, but given the circumstances, I think it's reasonable." Mira arrived at the office an hour later, unaware that her world was about to collapse. Margaret had asked her to come in for an urgent client matter, maintaining the pretense until the last possible moment. I waited in the conference room while Margaret's assistant escorted Mira upstairs. Through the glass walls, I could see her walking down the hallway with her usual confident stride, dressed impeccably and radiating the professional competence that had defined her career. "Mira, please sit down," Margaret said as they entered the conference room. "Wilder is here as well. This concerns both of you." Mira's confidence wavered when she saw me. "What's this about?" "It's about the systematic theft of client funds, falsified billing records, and conspiracy to commit embezzlement." Margaret replied calmly. It's about the $500,000 you've stolen from this firm and our clients over the past 3 years. The color drained from Mira's face. I don't know what you're talking about. Margaret spread the evidence across the conference table: bank records, email printouts, financial analysis reports. Your security monitoring software was very thorough, she told me. Every transaction, every communication, every attempt to hide the stolen money. Mira stared at the documents, her lawyer's mind probably calculating the impossibility of defending against such comprehensive evidence. This is a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said quietly. Just consequences. She turned to me, desperation replacing her usual composure. You did this. You set me up. I documented your crimes. There's a difference. Mira, Margaret continued, your employment with this firm is terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building, and you're prohibited from contacting clients or accessing any firm resources. We're also referring this matter to law enforcement and the State Bar Association. You can't do this. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, I said. I'd recommend exercising it. Security guards appeared in the doorway, summoned by Margaret's assistant. Mira looked around the conference room like a trapped animal, probably searching for some escape route that didn't exist. The evidence against you is overwhelming, Margaret said. Cooperation with the investigation might result in more lenient treatment, but that's between you and the prosecutors. As the security guards escorted Mira from the building, I felt a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This was the woman I'd married, the person I'd built a life with, and watching her career implode was both justice and tragedy. What about Jace Arnell? I asked Margaret. I've already contacted the appropriate regulatory authorities. His investment firm will be investigated, and his professional licenses will likely be revoked. That afternoon, I met Alara at a coffee shop downtown to coordinate the final phase of our revenge campaign. She looked elegant as always, but I could see the strain of the past few weeks in her eyes. Jace knows something's wrong, she reported. He's been making frantic phone calls all morning, and he tried to access some of their offshore accounts. The money's gone, by the way, frozen by federal investigators. How's he handling the stress? Badly. He's drinking more, sleeping less, and jumping at every unexpected sound. The psychological pressure is destroying him. Good. What about the social consequences? The gossip from Saturday's boxing match has spread throughout our social circle. Everyone's talking about your comments regarding cheating wives and Jace's humiliating performance in the ring. I sipped my coffee, savoring the bitter taste and the sweet satisfaction of revenge. Tonight's the charity gala at the Grandview Hotel. Are you ready for the grand finale? I've been ready for months. The Altair City Children's Hospital Annual Gala was the social event of the year, attended by everyone who mattered in the city's professional and social hierarchies. It was the perfect venue for the public destruction of Jace and Mira's reputations. I arrived early, dressed in my finest tuxedo and carrying a small device that Orion had prepared, a wireless transmitter capable of hijacking the hotel's audio-visual systems. The ballroom was magnificent, with crystal chandeliers and elegant decorations that reflected the wealth and status of the expected attendees. Alara arrived shortly after me, stunning in a midnight blue gown that turned heads throughout the room. We maintained our distance, playing the roles of estranged spouses dealing with marital difficulties, rather than co-conspirators planning public humiliation. Jace arrived alone, looking haggard despite his expensive formal wear. The stress of the past week had taken its toll. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by nervous energy and frequent glances toward the exits. Mira didn't attend. She was probably at home with her lawyer, preparing for the criminal charges that would inevitably follow Margaret's referral to law enforcement. The evening's program included speeches from hospital administrators, presentations about charitable achievements, and awards for community service. During the dinner service, I excused myself to visit the restroom and activated Orion's device near the audiovisual control booth. Ladies and gentlemen, the the master of ceremonies announced as dessert was served. "We have a special presentation this evening highlighting the importance of trust and integrity in our community." The lights dimmed, and the large screens around the ballroom flickered to life. Instead of the expected hospital promotional video, the audience saw surveillance footage of Mira and Jace in various compromising situations, edited to remove explicit content, but leaving no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Gasps echoed throughout the ballroom as Altair City's elite watched two of their own exposed as adulterers and thieves. The audio included selected excerpts from their email communications, including discussions of embezzlement, money laundering, and plans to abandon their spouses. Jace stood up from his table, his face pale with shock and humiliation. "Turn it off!" he shouted, but the hotel staff was as surprised as everyone else. The presentation continued with financial records